Welcome. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Bowers Fader Duo Composers Roundtable in anticipation of our concert this weekend, which is October 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern. That'll be noon Pacific for those of you on the West Coast. And we're going to be streaming that through Facebook, though I hope we have better tech luck on Saturday than we're having today. Hopefully it'll be better going straight through Facebook. Anyway, so first of all, I want to thank all of our composers for being here today, and thank you for your patience as we're sorting out the tech issues. Thank you for your music. Thank you for writing for us. Thank you for participating today. We couldn't do this without you. So our love and gratitude and thanks go out to you. And thank you to everyone in the audience who's joining us when you are able. And a quick thank you to Allison Kiger, who gave us a tutorial on how to do this kind of a meeting. I'll start the proper introduction. So for this year's concert, we have 8 composers, and 7 of the composers are with us this evening. Not yet, honey.
I know, sorry.
So just a quick introduction to everybody. We have Jeffrey Young, Richard Derby, Rebekah Driscoll, Larry Nelson, Louis Karchin, Randy Woolf, who actually is not here yet, I hope he signs on, and Paul Salerni. So for each composer, I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then we're going to play an excerpt from the piece that they wrote for us, and then I will ask the composer to talk a little bit about it, and you know, tell us about their process or whatever they want to talk about. And hopefully we'll have time. Well, hopefully we'll have time for Q&A at the end. My whole script is going out the window because of the change. So let's jump right to it. We're going to go tonight in concert order. So first up, we have Jeffrey Young. So Jeff, we met through Paul Salerni. Last year, we were out at Bethlehem at Lehigh University doing some concerts and some workshops. And we met Jeff and got to know him a little bit and thought that it'd be fun. I guess he thought it'd be fun to write for us. So he wrote us this wonderful song based on a Baudelaire poem and the poem is called Enivrez-vous, which means let's get drunk. So here's an excerpt of that from Jeff Young.
Et si quelquefois, si la marche d'Ambari, si l'herbe verte d'un fossé, dans la solitude de votre chambre, vous vous réveillez, l'ivresse déjà diluée ou disparue. Demandez au vent à la vague avec moi la maison à la loge, et demandez à tous ceux qui fuient, à tous ceux qui gémissent, à tous ceux qui roulent, à tous ceux qui chantent, à tous ceux qui parlent. Demandez quelle heure est-il?
Right. Sorry.
Sorry. Went to the next one. Sorry about that, Jeff. So there is an excerpt from Jeff's wonderful new piece. So Jeff, would you like to tell us a little bit about it? Share anything you think you'd like to tell us about it. And you're on mute, so don't forget to unmute.
Thank you, Jessica. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to Jessica and Oren for including the work of an emerging composer among those of such an illustrious group, for helping me to polish this song and for bringing it to life. To Paul Salerni, who's with us, for introducing me to Jessica and Oren at Lehigh after sharing some key wisdom with me at the beginning of my composing odyssey and guiding me along the way by word and by example. To my tutors, first Martha Bishop and now Darren Hagen, and to Baltimore guitarist Andrew Oswinkle for his enthusiastic input as he helped me learn to write for guitar. Enivrez-vous is a prose poem. Baudelaire said, "Who amongst us has not dreamt in moments of ambition for the miracle of a poetic prose, musical without rhythm and rhyme, supple and staccato enough to adapt to the lyrical stirrings of the soul, the undulations of dreams, and sudden leaps of consciousness. That quotation is from the dedication of a book of poems, The Spleen of Paris, in which the prose poem Enivre-vous appears. My introduction to the musical nature of Baudelaire's prose came upon acquiring the triptych of etchings that you see behind me. They're the work of artist Johnny Friedlander and came with a portfolio in which is printed the prose poem Invitation to the Voyage, which is also from The Spleen. The musical theme of the etching strongly attracted me. However, my efforts at setting that poem failed, so I read the other poems of The Spleen. I found the prose of Enivre-vous to be particularly musical, especially in the original French. And I was drawn to the undulating dreamlike metaphors, as well as to obviating any need to investigate whether translations are under copyright. The French phrase Enivre-vous is often fairly translated as get drunk or get high. Get drunk on wine, poetry, virtue, or whatever you like, Baudelaire preaches. And it remains a powerful metaphor for immersing oneself in one's passion. In a 1980 commencement speech at Johns Hopkins here in Baltimore, Leonard Bernstein shared a quote: "To search for truth, one has to be drunk with imagination." I think now is a critical time for us to listen to the call to get obsessed with virtue and truth and to respond to new challenges with imagination. I hope you enjoy Enivre-vous.
Wonderful, wonderful, Jeff. We do. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Jeff.
it's, it's nice. I think every year we've been doing this, we have a song that's in another language, which is great. Like American art song generally is in English, but I feel like we're sort of crossing that line a little bit. We've had French and German in the past and Spanish. So it's great that it's such a great song to kick off the concert with. So thank you so much. Oren, do you have any questions or anything to say to Jeff? We have a minute.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was beautiful.
Wonderful. And then, as we go along, if you guys have questions for each other, please, if you can do the hand raising motion on the Zoom, or just, give me a wave. But maybe if we move on now, we'll have time at the end for chatting. So thank you again, Jeff. That's beautiful. We love your song. So on to number 2 on the program is a song cycle by Richard Derby. Oren met Richard Derby, I guess last year or in the past couple of years. Oren was at a Locrian ensemble concert and heard a piece by Richard and thought it was fantastic. And then, as happens in New York City, he ran into him in the subway on the way home after the concert. And he was, aren't you Richard Derby? And he, well, yes, I am. And I really loved your piece. And so they got to talking. And Oren, of course, always says, so you got anything for Mezzo and Guitar? So Richard wrote us this wonderful 2-song cycle called 2 Songs for Mezzo and Guitar. And one interesting thing that we love about it is that the poems were written by his wife, Charlene. So tonight, Charlene Derby, I should give her full name. Tonight we're going to play you an excerpt from the second song, which is called On a Saturday. So here is On a Saturday by Richard Derby.
One sec.
I stand in the kitchen among the grocery bags and wonder why the shopping trip took 2 hours. Then I remember that I let him weigh the melon and weigh the milk and weigh the melon with the milk.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Richard, welcome to the Bowers Fader world. Thank you for your beautiful song. What would you like to tell us about that today?
Sure, thanks. The second poem which we heard that excerpt just now, is called On a Saturday. It consists of 4 stanzas that describe a mother's frustration with her young son, that would be my son, followed by her remembering what in fact did go right that day. So the pitches are derived from the only 6-note chord that happens to contain all 12 of the 3-note chords, the so-called all trichord hexachord. Measured in half steps, it's 0, 1, 2, 4, 7, and 8. Now the voice part uses specific transpositions of this chord and therefore fixed pitch placements in different octaves for each half stanza. The fact that there's a change in pitches in the second half of each stanza helps to communicate the change in mood from complaining to reflective. The second half of each stanza uses transposition levels that include the pitch E, so that the phrase, "then I remember," can be sung quietly on the same pitch each time. The transposition levels of the all trichord hexachord follow the intervals in the chord itself, providing another level of structural consistency. So in tonal music, you might have tonic, dominant, subdominant. In this case, we're following the intervals in the chord itself. The first poem is called Mayan Dawn. It's about a macho guy in a commercial for a caffeine drink, contrasted with a girl who takes the time to make friends rather than to charge around like the self-important guy. My wife was thinking of a specific coffee shop that has close links to the Central American coffee plantations. So on their coffee mugs, they have the Mayan alphabet. And the character Ixchel, who is mentioned in the poem, is in fact the Mayan goddess of weaving. And she weaves the dawn every day. This first song is based on 2 4-note subchords that are derived from the all trichord hexachord. The chord 0146 is associated with the commercial guy, and 0137 is associated with the gal. Now, in both songs, individual musical shapes or gestures are chosen to illustrate the ideas in the poems, of course. For instance, the commercial guy races around with rapid notes or shows off with jagged, wide interval gestures. In contrast, the line, "he grins zombie-eyed at the camera," is sung mechanically with repeated 8th notes on the same low C-sharp pitch. In the second song, On a Saturday, the mother remembers, in this example that we just heard, the mother remembers that "I let him weigh the melon," which is followed by a rapid gesture in the guitar. The soprano then sings "and weigh the milk," followed by a similar guitar gesture, which however uses different pitches. And after the line, "and weigh the melon with the milk," the guitar repeats its melon gesture, followed immediately by the milk gesture. So just illustrating the words of the poem. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard. Have you set a lot of your wife's poetry, or is this the first time?
I believe this is the second time. I wrote a set for piano and soprano about 10 years ago.
Okay, cool.
I find it useful.
Do you pick things that she wrote in? You find it useful? So does she write poems specifically for you to set, or do you take things that she wrote in the past and go that direction?
These are all poems that she wrote some time ago.
Okay.
For instance, the one about On a Saturday is when our son was 6 years old, I think. 29. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, I'll meet him someday and I'll be like, "Look, you had to weigh the melon and the milk. I get it. I get it."
And I'll go, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really such a wonderful musical gesture. We love that. Like, the whole cycle, of course, is wonderful. We love it, but that's a little moment. I'm so glad you wanted to use it for the excerpt tonight, because it's just, it's so charming.
And now,
So, Oren, were you about to say?
Yes, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Now Jessica and I have a new music joke that only us and you guys will understand, which is, if I'm being cranky or show-offy, Jessica will say, "Why are you being 0147?"
Wow.
Oh dear.
Now, if that
Right.
isn't geeky new music humor, I don't know what is.
You know, Frank Brickle would get that, and Bill Anderson would get that. So it's sort of a
That's right.
pity that they can't see this right now, but they'll see it eventually.
They'll see
Wonderful.
it on
Well,
yeah.
on the thing, right? Thank you so much, Richard. It's wonderful, and thank you for their free music. We're so happy to get the chance to work with you.
Thank you.
So moving on, we have Rebekah Driscoll. Rebekah, hi Rebekah. Oren met her many years ago, or maybe probably not that many years ago, when the Cygnus Ensemble was doing a residency at Sarah Lawrence College. And she made a big impression, and Oren just thought she was a fantastic composer. So we approached her last year, I believe it was last year, and she wrote us a piece for our 4th annual New American Art Song Concert, which we loved. And this year, she wrote us a new piece during COVID era. The piece that she wrote is a setting of a friend of hers, Reverend Kathleen W. Haynes, had presided at a funeral in April that was sparsely attended and socially distanced due to COVID restrictions. And she wrote this wonderful text about it, and Rebekah said it so beautifully. And so we'll be playing an excerpt from the song called "Who Will Cry for Her?" Music by Rebekah Driscoll, text by Reverend Kathleen W. Haynes.
I was able to sing the song she said many times she wanted at her funeral. And after we committed her body to the ground, and I gave the benediction, I began to cry again.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Rebekah.
Sorry.
Is it going on to the next song?
Got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that. So Rebekah, please tell us whatever you would like to share with us about this piece.
Yeah, it began with a Facebook post. My friend Kathleen, as you mentioned, is a pastor, and she had posted in April about officiating this funeral. And she knew the woman who had passed away, so she was mourning as well as officiating. And she knew what the woman had wanted for her funeral, some of which was possible and some was not. And her post really spoke to me because I had several loved ones experiencing various difficulties and trying to figure out how to comfort each other and how to be there for each other over screens and wires was really challenging. Mm-hmm. And I thought probably a lot of people could relate to that. So I asked Kathleen if I could adapt her text for the song. And in the excerpt that you just played so beautifully, she talks about being able to sing the song that this woman had wanted for her funeral. And I thought that was a really lovely detail that expressed how we can, whenever we do whatever we can, we have to adapt to the situation, we have to make adjustments. It still matters. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and powerless and disoriented, but I think trying to support each other and show up for each other as best we can and being compassionate with ourselves and others when things don't go the way we would have liked is how we're going to get through this. So I hope that's conveyed in the song, and that sounded really great so far.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have to say, I'm probably going to say this when we introduce your song in the concert as well. Doing it back in June when you first sent it to us, and then when we recorded it, made the video, then felt a certain way. Like it was intense. We were still in the height of the, the high numbers of infection, especially in New York City. And it was moving and amazing. And then practicing it in the past couple of weeks, where we are now, like the whole world with coronavirus and New York City and the various, ups and downs, just so much going on. The way we feel now is just, it's amazing how different it is. Like it's almost hard to perform the song now because everything has changed so much and so many more people have died and so many, there's gotta be so many stories. I don't know. It's just, it was amazing. The first time we sort of got it out to sort of practice it within the context of the rehearsal, or of the concert, Oren and I were both kind of like, we're going to have to take a moment here. It resonates so much more deeply. And that's amazing to me that this piece of art, this piece of music that is still so relevant, just hit us in a completely different way. So we wanted to thank you and Kathleen for just, I don't know, making us feel things.
I was going to say thank you for making us cry. We were crying.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that. Is it was shocking to us how different it felt, even just a month or two later. So it's wonderful. And so she wrote kind of what this text is as the Facebook post. You said you adapted it. Did she write something much longer, like almost like a sermon, or did she add to it for you to set it?
She had originally written something longer and less. I changed a few words for singability reasons and just sort of structural musical reasons. But
right.
Yeah, it was longer and more. I mean, it's prose. It's not a poem.
Right.
So right. I changed some phrases a little, but.
Right. I would love to see the whole thing sometime. I mean, I'd love to meet her anyway, because now that we've gotten so intimately familiar with this text anyway. So hopefully someday I can meet her and perhaps, see the rest of it. Or I mean, I don't know. I guess I could find it, or I could ask you. But anyway, wonderful. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. We love it. We love performing it. So thank you for writing it. So
thank you.
Okay, so then that takes us to Larry Nelson. Hi, Larry. He wrote us a wonderful 6-song cycle. And I believe Oren met Larry a few years ago, when he played a guitar duo with our friend, the Israeli guitarist Nadav Lev. And Oren really liked it and thought that Larry's writing was really great. And then I think, if I'm checking old communications, I believe Larry heard us play Kurt Weill, and I think you also said Bad Pets. So there's another Paul Salerni tie-in, and really liked the way we performed that and wanted to write for us. So wrote us this wonderful 6-song cycle.
We have to ask them if that's true now, right?
That is all true.
Right.
Okay. I only remembered the guitar duo thinking how great it was. It was just, wow, this guitar duo is really fun to play and beautiful.
You were very complimentary. I appreciated it.
Thank you.
Isn't Oren the best?
He is.
Okay, so now we have we have a song from the 6-song cycle.
For be the things I am wiser to know, idleness, sorrow, a friend and a foe. I am wiser to know, idleness, sorrow, a friend and a foe. For be the themes I've been better without, love, curiosity, freckles, and doubt. I've been better without love, curiosity, freckles, and doubt. 3 be the things I shall never attain: envy, content, and sufficient champagne. 3 be the things I shall have till I die. I shall have till I die. Laughter and hope, and a sock in the eye.
Fabulous. So Larry, talk to us. Tell us about your cycle, about the song. What do you tell us about your cat?
We have an interloper.
That's okay. We love cats.
Yeah, and I want to back up just a tiny bit. The piece that Oren and Nada played in 2017 was actually preceded by sketches for guitar and digital processing. So I was trying to have a single guitarist with a bunch of computer modules doing pitch shifting and delay and such. But the opportunity to write for two guitars when I didn't have to put a computer on stage and didn't have to rely on that seemed to be a good opportunity, and it really, really worked out well. And I appreciated very much the performance and also Oren's feedback on that. So as Jessica said, I was able to contact Oren and Jessica about a set of songs. And I really look forward to the opportunity. So I found poems online, and these poems spoke to me because of the varied style of them. But as I generally like to do when I'm writing songs, I wanted to study the word patterns and syllable patterns and pitch contours and emphasis patterns and things like that, because for me at least they produce an awful lot of information about what kinds of notes I'm going to put into the songs. So I get tempo, and I get character, and I get pitch contour, and I get rhythmic patterns. And I think that in this set of songs, I relied on that quite a bit. So I think and I hope that the listeners will find the variety interesting, and each piece has its own kind of space in that regard. So I look forward very much to the concert on Saturday, and I want to express my appreciation to Jessica and Oren for being so supportive, and also for their feedback in putting the songs together. Jessica's information about how to structure some of the notes and syllables and things like that were really helpful. And Oren showed me things about guitar that I had no idea about. Now I have a better idea, and I think the score is perhaps even more readable for almost any guitarist, and that's all due to him. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Larry. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you so much. It's our pleasure. We really are loving the songs, and yeah, no, guitar writing is hard. Like, I grew up playing the piano. I don't understand the guitar at all. Like, Oren has showed me a couple of chords, and it boggles the mind.
Jessica's being modest. She's a really good electric bass player, actually.
Yeah, that's a single finger. A single finger. I can play things. No strumming, no chords, not for reals. And also, I don't play the bass that much. Anyway,
could I one more
anyway,
thing?
yeah.
Larry, can maybe one day I can play the guitar with computer sound piece? Can talk about that?
I would love to try to put that back together. That goes back almost 9 years, but we'll find a way.
Fantastic.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Next project. Next concert will be guitar and voice. Pretty
Nice.
soon you'll be boot me completely out, and it'll be just you.
No, that won't happen.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you, Larry. We're really enjoying your songs. Okay, so then we'll have a little intermission, and to open up our second half, we have a wonderful new song cycle by Louis Karchin. And I had known Lou Karchin's name just in the music world, because Lou writes vocal music and operas, and any singer that's paying attention to the world around them is paying attention to who's currently writing opera right now. So I had known his name, but never met him. But we met him through Paul Salerni. Basically, all roads lead to Paul Salerni, it feels like. So he introduced us, and so this year Lou wrote us a wonderful 3-song set called 3 Songs on Poems of Emily Dickinson. And the excerpt we're going to play for you tonight is from the second song, which is called Heart Not So Heavy as Mine.
It was as if a rolling sound during this way caroled and mused and caroled, then bubbled slowly away. It was as if a chipping brook alone a toilsome way set leading feet to many ways without the knowing why.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Lou. So, ladies and gentlemen, Louis Karchin, what would you like to tell us?
Sure. Well, thank you, Jessica and Oren. Beautifully played just now. And also, I would like to thank the two of you for putting together this wonderfully ambitious concert and roundtable. I think it's just a wonderful thing for the music world to have events like this happening at this period. And I also want to thank my long-term, very good friend and colleague, Paul Salerni, who seems to be really at the center of this for getting Jessica and Oren and myself together. And I really appreciate it, as well as our very long-term association over the years. In any case, when Jessica and Oren and I began speaking about this cycle, I asked Jessica who her favorite poet was. And she said that she had very wide-ranging tastes and that I didn't have to say Emily Dickinson. And I thought, oh, Emily Dickinson, that's a great idea. And I had not actually read much of Emily Dickinson's poetry, although I'm certainly aware of and know somewhat the song cycles written by Aaron Copland and a choral piece by Elliott Carter that's based on her poetry. So I began reading through the poetry, and the first poem that I came across, Heart Not So Heavy As Mine, is the one from which you just heard an excerpt. And the premise seemed so intriguing for a composer. It's very simple. There's a person sitting alone in their house. They're a little bit sad, maybe a little bit depressed. Maybe there's a pandemic going on outside and they haven't been out for a while. And all of a sudden they hear someone coming by just whistling a random tune, and it makes them happier. And that's basically it. And it seemed compositionally like an interesting puzzle, interesting challenge, because there were these two personalities and the poet kept switching back and forth between them. And so for the composer, you had the nice possibility of segueing back and forth between the two personalities. And at the end of the song, the last line of the poem is, I pray you come once more. And that led me into writing a little epilogue for Oren at the end so that he could reintroduce the tune of the person who had come by the house. And maybe it's a dream, maybe it's not really happening, maybe it's just a wish because the soprano isn't singing at that point. But you can do that with music. You can suggest a possibility. So then just briefly for the other two poems, I wanted to find one that would be introductory in nature. I came across this lovely little poem called A Book, which is simply about how wonderful books are and reading. And I thought that would make a nice introduction to the cycle. And then for the third one, I kept reading through my Emily Dickinson volume, just kept reading and reading. And I finally got almost to the end of the volume, and I came upon this wonderful poem entitled Charlotte Bronte's Grave. And I had spent about 4 years or so working on Jane Eyre, her famous novel, as the basis for my opera. And this was a wonderful way to come back to Charlotte Bronte and write a homage to Bronte. And so that formed the third song of the cycle.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. From now on, I'll have to be careful what I suggest or what I pretend not to suggest. I don't know. I mean, it's I remember when we had that conversation, and then I felt like email from then on was like, I swear I wasn't trying to slyly suggest that to you. But as it turns out, it's wonderful. I mean, as you know, as everybody knows, Emily Dickinson's words are so musical. You know, and a book which for yeah.
At least you
Richard?
didn't. At least you didn't say, "Why don't you shut up, man?"
No, that would have been terrible.
I'll find you a New Yorker who can say that.
But you know, it's interesting when you first come across a poet's work and you first begin to read it through. It's just so overwhelming. There's so many possibilities, and at first I was rather attracted to the poems that Copeland and Carter had set. I knew the works a little bit, so I was circling around those, but I knew that I couldn't actually set those. I had to go a little bit deeper and find my own way into the poetry. So it does happen in stages.
Right, right. Well, it's wonderful. The songs are great. We're so thrilled to finally get to sing Lou Karchin music, and the whole cycle is just fantastic. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we're so grateful. So our next piece is by Randy Woolf, who is not signed on, but we'll play his excerpt anyway. I'm checking my email, I'm checking Facebook. I'm not seeing any messages from him, so I hope he's okay. But we'll soldier on as if he were here. So Randy Woolf is someone that I heard of a few years ago. I did a composers concordance concert where they asked a bunch of composers to write a choral piece that was 60 seconds long. And so in one night we did 32 1-minute long choral pieces. It was really cool. It was a fantastic concert. Many wonderful composers on that. But Randy's piece was unlike anything else. Like, he crammed in, it was like operatic what he got into 60 seconds with an 8-part chorus. Like, it was, you know, 1 to a part. So, you know, SSAATTBP. It was amazing. And so afterward I approached him and I said, do you have anything for guitar and voice? Like, do you have any interest in that? And he didn't at the time. He knew Oren, and so I think that sort of, I hooked him in by knowing Oren, because Oren has known everybody in the new music world for, you know, 30 years. So I was lucky I had Oren sort of in my corner. I'm like, well, you know, I know Oren Fader. So Randy was interested in writing for us. So he actually wrote for our first New American Art Song concert, which was in 2016. He wrote us a cycle, and then subsequently he's written us individual songs. And the song that we're going to do on this one is going to eventually be part of a cycle, but at this point it's just a standalone on a poem by Gary Ralph, who's a friend of his from the Boston area. And the song is called Asylum, and there's a couple little surprises in there for you guys.
Sorry, one sec. Stand by, I flubbed something, I'm sorry.
It's all right, we're figuring it out tonight.
Take 2. This is Randy. And here's the sound.
Crazy professor, crazy professor, in my own old ring keep my vinyl wick like some beautiful tropical bat. Deo Magenta. Give me a little time to find the others. We'll band together. We don't want to be dealt with. We don't want to find our categories. We don't want to find. We don't want to find our categories. We don't want to find. We don't want to find our categories. We don't. We want asylum. We want long green lawns. We want basket weaving. We don't want to be good. Crazy professor, crazy crazy professor.
So as you may have noticed, Oren sings on that one. Yay!
Jessica's a much better bass player than I am a singer.
Someday we'll still have someone write us a song so I can play bass and you can sing, and like that'll be the whole song. Anyway, so we hope Randy's okay. Hopefully we'll talk to him soon. But just another shout out to that. Gary Ralph is the poet and we love him. We became friends with him on Facebook. He's hilarious. It's funny getting to know someone through Facebook. And we look forward to the whole cycle that will come from that. Okay, so now we move on to Paul Salerni. Who's this Paul Salerni that we've been talking about the whole time? He's sort of, we always say he's a bit of the godfather of the Bowers Fader duo, because like we sort of came into, you know, incorporating because of him, and he's written us a ton of music, more than a whole CD's worth, and hopefully we'll have a CD forthcoming soon. And he wrote us this wonderful cycle, another one that was written during COVID era. And these are on poems by Dana Gioia, who's a frequent collaborator and dear friend of Paul. And hopefully someday we will also get to meet him because we've sung his words so many times. So the cycle is called Three Prayers. And this excerpt we're going to play for you tonight is from the first song, which is called Prayer at Winter Solstice.
Blessed are the cat, the child, the cricket, and the crow. Blessed is the sinner and the saint who redeem each other. Blessed are the damned, come in their perfection. Blessed is the pain that humbles us. Blessed is the distance that bars our joy.
Seems so unfair to have to stop it there.
I know, I was singing the next phrase in my head.
The next phrase, right.
Long for...
So Paul, what would you say about these songs?
Well, I think like Rebekah, I wanted to address what was going on in the crisis, and my first impulse always when I'm going to go write a song is to look to this poet who I've been studying for over 30 years, who, you know, I've done 2 operas together and orchestra narrative pieces, and, you know, 6 songs. I mean, in my mind, I found my voice as a composer when I found his poems, similar to the way my teacher, and actually my teacher that I had in common with Lou, Earl Kim, found his voice when he found Samuel Beckett. So, you know, when I need to express something really personal, I first looked at Dana. And I found Prayer at Winter Solstice, and just to be honest, and this is, I love writing for you guys all the time, but my first impulse was to write this for baritone and marimba. So the first setting of this was for baritone and marimba. And then I said, well, I can't write something and not write it for Jessica and Oren. So I did, and I realized how lovely it sounded when you did it. And so I said, okay, I've got to make a cycle out of this. And so I went through Dana's poems, much like Lou went through Dickinson's, and found 2 more that were prayers. One I didn't know called Household Gods, which is kind of the funny foil for the very serious prayers that are around it, because it's a piece about cats and Egyptian cats that are gods, but cats that, you know, protect your house and won't climb up and ruin your curtains. The third poem I'd actually said a long time ago. So this poem was very meaningful to me. It's called Prayer. My father, who I adored, died in 1993. I did a choral setting of Dana's poem called Prayer in 1994, and it seemed like it was eminently doable and changeable into something for Jessica and Oren. So I did that. In terms of my approach, what you heard in Prayer Winter Solstice, the first lines of this that you didn't hear are, blessed is the road that keeps us homeless. Blessed is the mountain that blocks our way. It's about this inexorable kind of march against the exigencies of life, which is exactly what I thought was happening in COVID. So hence the very steady guitar chords. And we get to the moment of talking about the dead. That's the one moment we have a pure triad, and then calm in their perfection is the one moment where Jessica sings alone. So just trying to be as true as possible to the text. I always think of myself not as a composer when I set poems, but rather as a translator. Household Gods is just, lively and funny and much more dissonant, and you just hope the cats don't, knock over the vase. And prayer is a little bit different. It's got the same language, I think, as Prayer Winter Solstice, but the words are a little more shadowy. So like the first words of this are echo of the clock tower.
Echo of the clock tower. Oh, sorry, that's Jessica's.
Right. Footsteps in the alleyway. So there are lots of images that indicate shadows. So there are lots of canons between the voice and the guitar and within the guitar voice. So that's kind of, the approach. Again, I always try to be as literal and as direct as possible. And actually, it's what I'd like to do is actually compliment my colleagues. I've been to obviously all of the 4 all-American art song recitals, and it is extremely rare that I like all the music at a new music concert, and almost invariably I have liked all the music that has been written for Jessica and Oren, and I think that's testimony to their ability to inspire composers, their ability to actually deliver the pieces well, and the good taste they have in choosing the composers they do, or the good taste the composers have in choosing to write for YouTube. So, and from what I heard tonight, I'm sure I'm going to love everything that's on the concert on Saturday. So,
thank you so much, Paul.
My compliments to all of you, some of whom I've known.
Thanks, Paul. You are. Right. No, you're going to love it. This concert is great. I mean, like the snippets that you heard tonight are just the tip of the iceberg. I also want to say, just to make sure it gets its due, if anyone wants to, so we're doing these 3 songs. There is a video of baritone Keith Fairs and Miles Salerni, Paul's son, who some of you maybe know, doing Prayer at Winter Solstice, and it's gorgeous. So check that out. And also I think Keith is doing that on a faculty recital on October 7th. So if you fall in love with the song, which you will, if you're interested, we can send you the link to see Keith's faculty recital performing, because it's just beautiful. Look forward, Paul. I look forward to hearing Paul and Miles the rest of the cycle at some point, which I
love that video.
Think they must be, right?
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's really cool. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Paul.
Jessica, can I just say one thing?
Go ahead.
My dad will probably be watching on the, he's going to watch the screen, but he'll be watching when we post it finally. And my dad told me all about chutzpah dika. So Paul, here's a little chutzpah. You wrote something for your own son before you wrote it for us? I mean, come on, man.
I'm sorry.
The
nerve of this guy writing for his own son before us. Sorry, that's a little chutzpah dika. Little joke here. Little joke.
Right. So the last piece on the program is by Patrick Zimmerli, who is not with us tonight because he's in a different time zone. He's like, it's in the middle of the night where he is.
In France.
So he wrote this wonderful, quick story. We were going to be the guest artists at the Bar Harbor Music Festival New Music Weekend this past summer. And of course that was all canceled, but we were able to still stream the concert, which was great. And they were still able to pay us, which is great. So we were doing our part to try to keep the music going, and thank God for Bar Harbor Music Festival for doing their part. but as part of the weekend, we had to work with a composer who was going to write something for us for the concert. And so we found Patrick Zimmerli, who Oren knew from the past, like he knew him as a jazz guy.
We're talking like 30 years ago, I knew him.
Right.
Yeah.
So he wrote us this. So Patrick and I got to talking about, you know, do we want to write new music? Do we want to write something totally crazy? Do we want to write something jazzy? And somehow we got to the idea of doing something old and new. And so he really liked the idea of taking the texts of an old John Dowland song. I guess I don't have to say old because it's John Dowland. And he took the poem and didn't listen to the Dowland setting at all. And he wrote his own original take on it, which is so completely different from the Dowland. So what we like to do is we present them in as a pair. So in the concert, we will sing the Dowland, and then we'll go straight into Patrick's piece, which, you know, couldn't be more different. I mean, you know, being 400 years later, it's awesome. It's actually a little bit jarring. But we also want to make sure to give a shout out to the fact that this composition that Pat wrote for us was made possible by a grant from the Alice M. Ditson Fund of Columbia University with assistance from the Bar Harbor Music Festival New Composers Program. So thank you to all of those people involved. Thank you again to Allison Kiger for hooking us up with that. So even though Pat's not here, we thought we'd play an excerpt from his piece. So this is, he calls it The Dowland Reset by Patrick Zimmerli. Really? That's where we stopped at?
That's
it. Okay. Isn't Oren just amazing? Like, his chops are just on fire. So, like, hopefully he's one of those people that at the end of the concert, he's super warmed up and he can do stuff like that. Like when you're a singer, like when you have a huge aria at the end of a Rossini opera, you're ready to do it. And so that's
except you had to
that's
sing,
what that feels like.
You sang a giant Paul piece that was massive, but you said it was so beautiful on your voice that it was fine. The food piece.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, right. The food piece.
Right. Yeah.
Right. In any case, that's Patrick Zimmerli's piece, and that's how we're going to end the concert.
Thank you,
so
Pat.
at this, in the live stream, we would try to take questions from the audience, but obviously we don't have an audience. I mean, again, we don't need to draw this out. It's been about an hour, so that's probably good. Does anybody have any last minute words of wisdom or something else they'd like to say? I mean, you can raise your hand or give me a wave, or we can call it good. I mean, I hope this was interesting for everyone. This is fascinating for me. I really loved hearing you guys talk about your music, and I'm sorry we're not getting to do that in person. Oren, do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
I was just going to say just what Jessica said, and thank you. And if you have any questions for each other or the world, now's the time.
Thank you. And Oren, do be careful when you use the phrase stand by.
Oh. You talking president stuff?
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. Really, we can't thank you enough. We hope you're able to tune in. And again, hopefully we won't have the same tech issues on Saturday because we'll be going directly through Facebook. So we've recorded this whole thing, and we'll get it posted as soon as we're able to do that. So thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for tuning in. It's really, really wonderful to see you all and sort of talk to you. And we look forward to Saturday very much, and we hope you do too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much.
Have a great
All right.
night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.